There comes a quiet evening, maybe after dinner, maybe while you're sitting alone with your thoughts, when something inside you whispers, "This doesn't feel right anymore." You look back and realize you've spent a lifetime, maybe 30, 40, 50 years, raising your children with every ounce of your being. You carried them, taught them, protected them, gave up parts of yourself they'll never even know you lost, all so they could have a better life. You were the safe place, the voice of comfort, the one who never gave up on them, even when the world did. But now something's shifted. Maybe they barely listen when you speak. Maybe they respond with irritation, or worse, disinterest. Maybe you feel like a ghost in your own family. Not quite invisible, but fading. And it hurts, doesn't it? Not the loud kind of hurt, but the kind that sits in your chest late at night when the phone doesn't ring, when you wonder if you still matter to them. Because you're not asking for much. You're not asking for praise or to be repaid. All you want is respect. You want to feel seen again, heard, valued, not as someone who was important, but someone who still is. And some days you may feel tempted to remind them, to lay out every sacrifice, every night you stayed up sick with worry, every time you swallowed your pain so they could be happy. But deep down, you already know. Begging for respect only pushes it further away. Getting angry, guilt-tripping them, it doesn't work. It never really has. So what does work? How do you reclaim your place in their hearts? Not as a burden or background character, but as a presence they admire, as someone whose voice still carries weight, whose wisdom still matters. That's exactly what we'll explore today. I'm going to walk you through 6 powerful changes, gentle, quiet shifts in how you show up, that can reshape how your children see you. These aren't gimmicks. They're life truths, hard-earned, deeply rooted, and profoundly effective. Some may challenge what you've always believed. Some may surprise you. But if you stay with me to the end, you'll discover not just how to earn back their respect, but how to live in a way where they can't help but give it to you. So before we begin, let's take a moment. Breathe. Settle in. Maybe pour yourself a warm cup of tea or coffee, something comforting. Let's treat this time as a gift, just you and me, a quiet conversation between friends, heart to heart. And while we walk through this together, I'd love to hear your voice. Have you ever felt like your children no longer respect you the way they once did? If you're ready to turn things around, type the words, "I'm ready to regain respect," in the comments below. Let that be your first step, not just for yourself, but for someone else who might read it and realize they're not alone either. If this message already resonates with something inside you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you feel moved to support our work, consider using the Super Thanks button. It helps us bring more healing conversations to those who need them most. Stick with me to the end, because the final insight I'll share might just change the way you see yourself and the way your children see you forever. Let's begin. Action 1. Build a life outside of them. One of the most powerful ways to quietly restore your children's respect, without having to say a single word, is to show them that your joy, your purpose, your sense of self, do not rely on them. As parents, we pour everything into our children. We rearrange our lives for their needs. We make their happiness our mission, and for decades it feels like the right thing to do. But somewhere along the way, a shift happens. It's subtle at first, a silence here, a shorter visit there. And before you know it, the love you gave so selflessly begins to echo back as distance. Not because they don't love you, but because they no longer see you. They only see the role you played. Because when you build your entire world around your children, they may start seeing you not as a full, vibrant individual, but as someone who only exists through them. And here's the truth. People, including your own children, respect those who have a life of their own, a pulse of their own, a world beyond family ties. But if they sense that your entire week hinges on whether they call or visit, they may begin to withdraw, not out of coldness, but from pressure. And that pressure can turn love into discomfort and closeness into avoidance. There was a woman I once knew. Her name was June. She was in her early 80s, widowed, once a lively painter and community leader. But after her husband passed, she gave all her energy to her grown children, calling almost daily, offering advice constantly, rearranging her life to fit their calendars. She wanted to feel needed, to stay connected. But the more she gave, the more they drifted. Her calls went unanswered. Holidays became brief. She began to feel like a shadow, present but unseen. Until one day, June made a quiet but courageous decision. She picked up her paintbrush again. She joined a walking group, started writing poetry in the mornings. She began volunteering at the library, just a few hours a week, but enough to make her feel alive again. Bit by bit, she rebuilt a life where she was the center. Not her grief, not her children, not her loneliness. And something remarkable happened. Her children started reaching out more, not because she begged for their time, but because they saw something new in her eyes. A spark, a wholeness, a woman who stood tall on her own. For the first time in years, they didn't just love her, they respected her, admired her. So now I ask you, when your children think of you, do they see someone who's living a full, meaningful life of their own? Or do they see someone waiting to feel important again? Because here's the secret. When you start truly living, not merely passing time, they start seeing you differently. They begin to value your time. They begin to respect your space. And they recognize your life has weight. Your presence has meaning. If this part of the message resonated with you, I want to hear your voice. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm building my life again." Let it be your quiet promise, not just to your children, but to yourself. Because when you start honoring your own life, others begin to do the same. Let's continue together. The next shift might just open the door you've been waiting for. Second action 2, stop chasing their approval. One of the most heartbreaking patterns many aging parents fall into, without even noticing, is the quiet, desperate quest for their children's approval. You start reshaping your day to fit their plans. You say yes when everything inside you wants to say no. You silence your thoughts, suppress your needs, and slowly they disappear behind a mask of pleasant compliance. All because you hope, maybe this time, they'll notice, they'll appreciate, they'll finally see you. But here's the hard truth. The more you chase their validation, the faster their respect slips away. And it's not because they're cruel or unloving, it's because that's how human nature works. When someone constantly bends just to please, they unintentionally teach others to overlook their boundaries, to undervalue their voice. Respect doesn't grow from silence. It blooms from self-worth. There's someone I once met. Her name was Alice. In her earlier years, she was strong-willed, vibrant, a woman who could command any room. But over time, as her children grew up and took on lives of their own, something changed in her. She started tiptoeing around their feelings, canceling lunch with friends if her son needed something, saying nothing when her daughter criticized her choices. Not because she agreed, but because she feared pushing them away. "I just want to keep us close," she once said to me, eyes filled with quiet sadness. But what she didn't see was that her constant accommodation was slowly dissolving her presence in the family. Her children no longer asked what she thought. They no longer waited for her input. In their eyes, she had become someone who would always go along, no matter what. Alice thought she was protecting peace, but she was sacrificing her place at the table. So if you've been feeling ignored, overlooked, dismissed, maybe it's not about raising your voice. Maybe it's time to raise your standards. Because dignity doesn't come from giving endlessly. It comes from knowing when to say, "That's enough." It comes from saying no when something doesn't sit right, from speaking your truth even if it ruffles feathers, from holding space for your needs, just like you always did for theirs. When you live with self-respect, the world around you takes note. And your children, they begin to listen, not because you demanded their attention, but because you showed them what quiet strength really looks like. If this part of the video speaks to something you've been feeling, I want to invite you to join the conversation. Leave a comment below with the words, "I choose self-respect." Let it be a line in the sand, a declaration that from this moment forward, you no longer need to chase approval. You choose to live with clarity, with boundaries, and with pride. Let's keep going. The next insight may be the exact shift your heart's been waiting for. Third action, Third, don't argue, lead by example. When your children start brushing off your words, cutting you off mid-sentence, or replying with a tone that feels dismissive, even patronizing, your first impulse might be to respond with force, to raise your voice, to remind them, maybe not with anger but with urgency, of all the sacrifices you've made, of the years you gave, of how much you deserve their respect. But here's something that could save you years of disappointment. Arguing doesn't recover respect. It buries it deeper. Ask yourself with honesty, has anyone ever looked at you with more admiration because you raised your voice at them? Respect doesn't grow louder. It grows quieter. It thrives in how you carry yourself when you're being tested, especially by those closest to you. Because every time you respond to disrespect with frustration, you're sending a silent message. They've already gotten to you. You're handing them the very control you're trying so hard to hold on to. There's a man I once knew. His name was Daniel. He had been a respected mentor, a coach, someone who could walk into any room and command attention. But in his own family, things were different. His grown kids rolled their eyes at his suggestions, interrupted him mid-story, shrugged off his advice like it meant nothing. At first, Daniel pushed back. He tried to make them see, tried to remind them who he was, what he'd done for them, how much he deserved to be heard. But the more he pushed, the more they pulled away. His voice got louder, but his presence got smaller. And then, Daniel chose silence. Not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. He began listening, not passively, but with purpose. He spoke less, but when he did, his voice was steady, calm, measured. No frustration, no pleading, just clarity. He stopped trying to earn respect and started simply living it. His actions said, I don't need to fight for your attention. I already know my worth. And slowly the shift began. His children leaned in more. They listened longer, not because he demanded their respect, but because they couldn't ignore his quiet strength any longer. So if you've been feeling like your voice isn't being heard, don't push harder, don't fight louder, stand firmer, speak softer, live stronger. Let your presence speak when your words fall short, because when you stop reacting and start modeling dignity, people take notice. They may resist at first, but over time, they'll follow your lead. Not out of obligation, but out of deep, genuine respect. And if you're still with me, still here, listening and reflecting, leave a comment below that says, lead by quiet strength. Let it be your anchor, a quiet declaration to yourself and to those watching that you're no longer fighting to be seen. You're choosing to be someone who cannot be ignored. If this spoke to you, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Because the next step we're about to explore might just be the one that changes the way you carry yourself forever. Let's keep going. Fourth action, fourth stop, giving without appreciation. One of the quietest ways to lose your children's respect, without even noticing, is to keep giving, long after they've stopped appreciating. And the hardest part? We often don't even realize we're doing it. As parents, it becomes second nature. We give out of love, out of loyalty, out of that deeply ingrained instinct to always be available, to always show up when they need us. We give our time, our energy, our money, our presence. We cancel our plans to accommodate theirs. We say yes even when it drains us. And most of the time, we do it with open hearts. But over time, something shifts. The thank yous become fewer. The appreciation fades. What used to be seen as kindness slowly becomes an expectation. And here's something few people dare to admit out loud. When you continue giving to someone who no longer values what you offer, you don't strengthen the relationship, you dilute it. Instead of love, they begin to feel entitled. Your help becomes background noise. Your sacrifice turns invisible. And when you finally stop, when you take a step back, they don't feel grateful, they feel annoyed. I once met a man named Harold, a father of 3, retired and always ready to help. Whenever his children needed something, rides, bills paid, last-minute favors, he'd drop everything. He'd rearrange his doctor's appointments, miss social events, even skip meals, just to be there. For decades, he believed that giving was the way to keep the family close. But over time, something started to break. The gratitude was gone. His help became expected. And when Harold himself fell ill and needed support, they were suddenly too busy. That day didn't just hurt, it opened his eyes. From that moment on, Harold made a quiet but powerful choice. He stopped jumping in uninvited. He began saying no when it didn't feel fair. He put his own needs back on the map. And at first, his children were confused, even frustrated. But little by little, they began to understand. Their father's kindness was not a guarantee. It was a gift, one that deserved respect, not assumption. So if you've been feeling like your generosity is taken for granted, like your efforts are received with silence or entitlement, it may be time to pause. Ask yourself, am I giving because I want to, or because I feel I have to? And if I step back today, even just for a while, what would shift? Because when you begin to value your own time, your own space, your own peace, you teach others to value it too. You teach them that your love is still strong, but it has boundaries. And that lesson, though it may come as a surprise, is often the one they remember most. If this part of the video touches something in you, if you've ever felt unseen despite how much you give, don't carry it alone. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, a friend, a parent, a grandparent. It might be the reminder they didn't know they needed. Let's keep going, because the next shift, it's one of the most empowering of all. Action 5, set boundaries and enforce them. One of the most subtle yet powerful reasons why many parents lose the respect of their adult children is because they unintentionally allow it to happen. When you accept sarcasm as humor, when you let them disregard your advice, dismiss your time, or treat your emotions as irrelevant, it doesn't mean they're bad kids. It means they've been silently taught that this is acceptable. Because whether we admit it or not, people, including our own family, will always treat us the way we've shown them they can. Setting boundaries isn't about becoming confrontational. It's not about creating distance or cutting off the people you love. It's about drawing a clear, steady line that says, this is how I deserve to be treated. And if that line is crossed, there are consequences. Not emotional explosions, just calm, consistent action. But here's the truth most people miss. A boundary means nothing unless you enforce it. Without follow-through, a boundary becomes just a wish, an empty hope that things will get better on their own, and they rarely do. There was a man named Walter, a successful man in his career, known for his leadership and fairness. But when it came to his grown children, he became silent. They would cut him off mid-sentence, roll their eyes when he offered thoughts, scoff at his preferences. At first, he brushed it off, telling himself he didn't want to start trouble, that keeping the peace was more important than making a point. But over time, he started to feel small in his own family, not because they hated him, but because he kept swallowing his voice. And then, Walter made a different choice, a quieter, firmer one. When his son interrupted him again at dinner, Walter gently put down his fork and said, "I'll finish when you're ready to hear me." When his daughter brushed off his concern, he replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but you will speak to me with courtesy." And when nothing changed, he followed through. He began spending less time where he didn't feel respected, not in anger but in dignity. And slowly, they noticed. At first they resisted, but eventually they adjusted. They started listening longer, speaking softer, because Walter didn't threaten. He didn't scold. He simply upheld his value. And that changed everything. So if your children are treating you in ways that feel unfair, hurtful, or dismissive, don't just ask why. Ask what you've tolerated. Because respect doesn't begin when others decide you're worth it. It begins the moment you decide what you will no longer accept. If this message has stirred something inside you, even if just a flicker, I invite you to do something powerful. Share this video with someone who might need it, a fellow parent, a friend, a grandparent silently struggling to hold their space. This might be the reminder they've been waiting for. Let's continue, because the final shift we're about to explore could be the key to unlocking the emotional freedom you've long deserved. Action 6. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the hardest yet most liberating truths we face as we age is this. Our emotional well-being cannot rest on the shoulders of our children. Of course, we love them. Of course, we want to feel their love, their care, their warmth in return. But the moment they sense that your sense of happiness, your self-worth, your peace depends on them, the balance quietly begins to shift, and not in your favor. Here's the quiet truth that no one wants to say. Even your own children will pull away if they feel emotionally responsible for your joy. When you look to them for constant reassurance, for calls to feel needed, for visits to feel whole, it doesn't build connection. It builds pressure. Silent, invisible pressure that whispers, if I don't call, mom's going to feel alone. If I don't visit, dad's going to think I don't love him. And over time, that pressure doesn't bring them closer. It slowly pushes them away. They may start to avoid the calls, keep visits brief, respond with guilt instead of affection. And it's not because they've stopped loving you, it's because something sacred has been replaced. Love has been replaced by obligation. I remember a woman named Linda, a loving, generous mother who gave her entire life to her children. She never asked for much, but as they grew busier with their own lives, she began to feel the silence around her grow louder. She waited by the phone, checking the clock. When the call didn't come, she would reach out herself, and not just once, sometimes twice in a week, leaving messages that said things like, I just wanted to hear your voice. The house feels so quiet today. Her heart was pure, but gradually those messages began to weigh heavy. What once felt like love began to feel like pressure. And then Linda did something powerful. She stopped chasing connection and started rebuilding within. She joined a local walking club, took a poetry workshop at the community center. She started baking again, not because someone needed cookies, but because she enjoyed it. Slowly, her days began to fill, not with waiting, but with living. And then something remarkable happened. Her children began to call more, stay on the phone longer, ask how she was doing. And the difference was clear. They weren't calling out of guilt. They were reaching out because they wanted to, because the energy in her voice had shifted from need to strength. And in that shift, their respect deepened. So if you found yourself quietly aching for connection, hoping a call or visit will fill the emptiness, take a moment to ask yourself, am I waiting to feel loved? Or am I choosing to live fully, no matter what? Because the less emotionally dependent you become, the more your children will see you not as someone who needs to be rescued, but as someone deeply rooted in their own sense of self. That kind of presence, it invites admiration, not pity. If this reflection touches your heart or reminds you of someone you care about, please consider sharing this video. One quiet shift in mindset might be all it takes to free someone from years of silent suffering. Let's move forward. The journey's not done yet. Here's what I hope has settled in your heart today. Respect from your grown children is never something you can demand. It's something you quietly attract by how you carry yourself, how you protect your boundaries, and how you live with quiet confidence and inner dignity. If you've felt ignored, undervalued, or quietly wounded by how your children treat you, don't waste another moment trying to fix it through frustration or guilt. Instead, shift how you show up in the world. Stop chasing their approval, because the day you no longer need it is the day they begin offering it willingly. Choose quiet strength over loud reactions, because true power doesn't shout, it shines. Let go of emotional dependence, because when you stop leaning on others to feel whole, you remind them of your strength and completeness. Set clear, respectful boundaries, and hold them firmly but gracefully, because people treat us exactly as we teach them to. And stop giving endlessly without being seen, because real generosity loses its beauty when it's taken for granted. But more than anything, build a life of your own, a full, rich, joyful life that isn't waiting on a phone call or an invitation, a life that reflects who you are, not just as a parent, but as a whole, vibrant human being. Because that's the kind of life that draws respect, that commands it without a single word. And when you begin to live this way, something quiet but extraordinary will happen. Your children will start looking at you not with pity, not with obligation, but with genuine admiration. Not because you demanded to be respected, but because you became someone who inspires it. Now, I'd truly love to hear from you. Out of everything we shared in today's video, what resonated most deeply with you? What quiet change are you ready to begin? Share your voice in the comments with this simple, powerful sentence. I'm ready to regain respect. You never know. Your words may be the gentle nudge someone else needs to begin their own journey. If this video has brought you a sense of clarity, comfort, or hope, please take a moment to like it, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you'll always know when new videos are released. And if you feel moved to support this channel and help spread this message to others who need it, consider clicking the super thanks button below. Every bit of support helps us continue creating meaningful, heartfelt content for people just like you. I also want to know, what's something you're struggling with right now? What topic would you love us to explore in an upcoming video? Something real, something that matters to you in this stage of life? Drop it in the comments. We're here to listen and to walk alongside you in every new chapter. In our next videos, we'll be exploring how to reconnect with distant adult children, how to rediscover your identity in later life, and how to create peace within yourself and your home. You won't want to miss what's coming. And always, always remember this. You are not a burden. You are not forgotten. You are worthy of love, of dignity, and of a life that feels beautifully your own. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of your heart, stand tall in your worth, and know this: your most powerful years may still be just beginning.